morning. Welcome to First Mover, your first global look at today's action in the Bitcoin, blockchain, and digital asset space. I'm your host, Christine Lee, and joining me are my co-hosts, CoinDesk Managing Editor of Global Capital Markets, Lawrence Lewitinn, and Managing Director of International Content, Emily Parker. Good morning, everyone. How are you doing?
Good morning. How are you?
My virtual team. I'm very, very glad to have you. As we see, the crypto markets are up this morning, along with U.S. stocks, it seems, in the futures market. So checking in on Bitcoin, the CoinDesk Bitcoin price XBX index is currently trading at $57,679. Bitcoin is up about 3.6% over the past 24 hours. And the CoinDesk Ether price, ETX index, is at 34.94. ETH is up about 3.3% over the past 24 hours, challenging its all-time high of about 35.45. So, Lawrence, taking a look at the crypto markets, what's your assessment?
I mean, it is a bad day for Emily. Doge is down 11%. I'm sorry to report. However, the Wall Street Journal this morning had an interesting piece about people looking for these alts, and the alts are up today. Besides Doge, it seems as if people are taking their money out of Doge this morning, which is up 12,000%, as I said before. But they're going into things like Ethereum Classic, which is up 35% today. Year to date, almost 1,800%. EOS up 25%. Year to date, it's nearly quadrupled. Same thing with Bitcoin Cash and Cardano. Those guys are up in the 20% range. So people are looking at the alts definitely to go into. But as far as ETH goes, that's up as well. That's where there's still more excitement. We're seeing purchases in the options market for a price of $8,000 strike price by the end of June. And that's people being excited about things like EIP 1559, which is, among other things, expected to limit the supply a little bit there of ETH. So, overall, it's an exciting time in the alts and in the Ethereum market.
Yeah, it's definitely alt season. Emily, also ING coming out with a report on DeFi saying that it poses a serious disruptor to banks. What did we learn?
Well, this is a really hot topic right now because originally Bitcoin was created to be a disruptor to banks and to the financial system. And now we are seeing a lot of banks actually adopt Bitcoin or adopt cryptocurrency services. So yes, this report found that DeFi is actually more disruptive to banks than Bitcoin because DeFi, the fundamental concept behind DeFi, are these sort of automated smart contracts that can actually literally replace a financial intermediary. So the report highlighted that as a potential disruptor, but also noted that there are technical risks that come with that. So there are intermediary risks that come with financial institutions, but there are technical risks that come with smart contracts. So there's always going to be a bit of a trade-off.
Yeah, and it's catching attention that a major Dutch bank is looking into this. And so Ether's skyrocketing surge is being fueled by its use in decentralized finance, non-fungible token marketplaces, and more. It's catching the attention of investors. ETH accounts for about 15% of the total crypto market with a market cap of over $400 billion. Joining us now to discuss is one of the co-founders of Ethereum, Anthony Iorio in Toronto. Welcome, Anthony.
Hey, guys. Good to be on.
Good to have you. All right. So a lot of people are asking about the price of Ether, how far it can go. Is it overvalued, undervalued? What are your thoughts?
I think, it's
nobody likes that question.
That's the way I always like to say. I don't like to do predictions of where it's going to be. I just think it's very strong right now, and we're seeing a lot of activity with Ether. We're seeing a lot of people understanding that it is maturing. It still has some issues, but it's Things are on a good stage. We've got ETFs that have opened up, which are making it easier for retail buyers, at least in Canada. There's a few that have opened up. And I just think with the NFT market, with the DeFi market, I just don't see things really stopping for Ether. And I think that the issues that it does have with high gas prices are going to eventually be worked out. And it's what's still being used right now. And you have other platforms that are taking a little bit of share away from it, and that'll always be challenging it, which is a good thing. And the best ones are going to win out. So it's definitely happy with where it is, but I'm also in no means a maximalist in anything to do with Ethereum or with Bitcoin. I think there's a massive ecosystem that really excites me as a whole, and it's great to see and been part of what Ethereum has done and leading up to where it is right now. But there's just a lot of excitement as a whole in the ecosystem, and that's what really is something that I like.
Anthony, ETH is eroding Bitcoin's dominance over the crypto market, and it's triggering whispers of a flippening that is a possible event in the future when Ether could surpass the value of Bitcoin. What are the chances that could happen?
I mean, what are the chances that Doge could get up to where it is right now and flipping a whole bunch of other ones? So I think anything's possible. I think there is a lot more use case for Ethereum than there is with Bitcoin. They're completely different animals. There's a lot more functionality and a lot more different sectors that Ethereum is touching than Bitcoin can. Bitcoin definitely first mover, Ethereum first mover for other platforms similar to it. So I think it possibly could happen, and I wouldn't be surprised. But who knows? We'll just have to wait and see.
Anthony, I don't want to harp too much on Ethereum anymore because I know you're not heavily involved so much as you used to be, obviously. But can you explain for the folks at home EIP 1559? What will that mean for the Ethereum network? Why are people so excited and talking about it now?
Yeah, you know what? I don't even know what that is. It's not something that I really follow on the Ethereum side of things. There is so much going on right now, and there's how many EIPs are there and Ethereum improvement protocols that are out there? I build wallets for a number of different cryptocurrencies, and I've kind of purposefully do not stay too much up to speed on what's happening in the different particular ones. And even with Ethereum, it's just Ethereum is not actually the one that I hold the most of. There's other projects that I'm following more closely than I do with Ethereum. So I'm not the expert of what's actually happening in the different protocols and the different improvement protocols that are happening.
Which projects are you most excited about? If since you're saying that.
So I have a lot of faith and confidence in some of my other co-founders of Ethereum. You've got Gavin Wood, you've got Charles Hoskinson, so you got Cardano, you got Polkadot. Those are two that I'm very interested to see where they're going to take things. Luna is one that I've gotten into recently as well, but I'm in a number of other ones as well. So I hold Ethereum. It's probably my number 4 or 5 right now in what I do, but there's just a number of the others that are out there that I am backing because of the people involved in it, because I know how driven they are. Things like Cardano and Polkadot. You've got Gavin Wood, who was the CTO of Ethereum and just a super intelligent person and really driven and very good. And his goal to not just get closer to Ethereum, but also help the entire ecosystem. Cardano, similar type of thing. Charles was the CEO of Ethereum back in the day, and again, super intelligent. He's been working more on the academic side of things and trying to bring some different things to light here, and both of them have been able to take their projects high up into the rankings. So those are two that I've been following pretty closely, but really my attention goes into building the wallets and interfaces that all of these different technologies are using, and that's what we do with Jack's Liberty, and building the infrastructure that's going to support thousands of different projects out there. So it is very challenging for me to keep up to date on individual specific ones just because of my focus.
I know you just said that, of course, but you are pretty invested in Cardano, and so I wanted to ask you if you followed at all their situation with the Ethiopian Education Ministry, what they're doing, and how that fits into the overall project of Cardano and what it means for its future.
It's a press announcement to me. It's been years and years. I've been in the space. It's been almost 10 years. There's been a lot of press announcements over the past with things like Honduras instituting ways to do land registries, and I'm a little more cautious of will it actually happen and how does it get executed. And there's a lot of little variables involved, especially when you're dealing with governments and you're trying to change a system in an area that is as underdeveloped as it is in Ethiopia. So I'm, hopeful maybe that they're able to do something down the road, but I'd like to see that actually come up and actually materialize. And for me right now, it's just a press release. And I'd like to see it being executed, because many times in the past, I've seen projects like this that a few years later, they don't get off the ground, or there's other variables that weren't thought about that don't make it happen. So for me, it's just a press release right now. And I'm hoping there is some value out of it down the road, but it's just not something that I'm giving too much credence to at this time.
You think Charles can execute?
Yeah, I think he's doing some things with his project that are different. He's working in languages that aren't necessarily developers are focusing on. A lot of academic is there, and you get people that might be saying, The development side is what needs to be focused on. Academia doesn't really develop things. So he's got a different approach. We'll see how it comes out. You get some people that are saying that it hasn't proven anything yet, but it is a long-term game. And I think that's the plan that Charles has with things. And we'll just to see over time if he's going to be able to take this to fruition, to really create value with what it is he's bringing forward. And I think that still has to be proven.
So you mentioned the word maximalist earlier, and in theory, all the success of Ethereum and the success of all these different cryptocurrencies, it should be a rising tide lifts all boats. But in the past, that hasn't necessarily been the case, right? There's been a lot of infighting in the crypto world between the Bitcoin camp and the Ethereum camp. And what do you think is the status of that now? Are you still seeing a lot of that happening, kind of resentment from the Bitcoin maximalists of Ethereum's success, or do you think that some of these tensions have gotten smoothed over? Where do you see the current situation?
There's a wide range of people that are going to fit somewhere in between there and be on extreme sides. I think that when you have money involved and you have people believing in one thing and they're trying to push their particular tribe and their particular project, you're always going to get those people that are shilling or people that are trolling other things. But I try not to pay too much attention to that. I'm very much a middle ground person and what's actually creating value. So I think it will always exist. I don't know if it's changed any for the better. I just think you'll always get that tribe mentality, which is kind of unfortunate. But when you are dealing with money, that's what's going to be happening, and people are going to be trying to push their tribe and their projects forward. It is nice to work together, I think, and bring people together, and that's kind of where my focus has been. There is many good projects out there that are going to create a lot of value, and then there's a lot of other ones that don't seem to be doing too much that are also maybe rising in price, but those are the ones to be maybe cautious with. So I don't know if it's changed. I don't go much into forums or social media to really see what's happening between, maximalists or people that are in one project or the other. So I hope it's getting better. I don't know if it is, but I tend not to focus on what's happening between different projects in terms of what tribes are saying about other ones.
Anthony, I wonder if you could comment on the whole decentralized finance ecosystem and the non-fungible token marketplaces that are popping up. What are your thoughts on how these are evolving and how they are shaping the crypto market space?
Yeah, it's been a while coming. These are things that we saw years and years ago were going to develop, and really Ethereum, I think, was the creation of DeFi and also the creation of NFTs. And it's not interesting too much to me. The entire space to me is I don't know. It's become very saturated, and it's been. There's a lot of people working on these things, and over time, when you've been on something for 10 years and you were doing it for years before it actually became, very or became at all mainstream, it's good to see where they are right now. The NFT market, I think, it's figuring itself out right now. I don't know if the value of it is really showing through yet, and you get a lot of projects that are coming out that I don't find very sexy at all. If someone makes an announcement about an NFT project, it's like, okay, that's fine. But I think over the next few years, we'll really see how it does provide value and it starts to really take shape. The DeFi space, exactly the same thing. There's a lot of good value in it. There's a lot of things that you got to be watch out for, and that's like it is with anything. I think they're going to mature over the years, and we're just getting started with probably both of those right now.
Too many suits in the business?
No, I'm not going to say that. There's different people that are going to bring different value, whether they're wearing suits or not wearing suits. It's everybody kind of coming together in these really exciting technologies, and there's a lot of innovation happening and a lot of cool breakthroughs and problems being solved. And it's really exciting to see these technologies and where they're going to go in the future and how they're going to improve people's lives, how they're going to create real value, how they're going to change the way things have worked in many different sectors, and the people that are going to adapt and get in there early on and figure out how they're still going to fit, I think will be the ones that are going to be able to utilize it in the future and capitalize on it.
Some people are saying, Anthony, that ETH can become a victim of its own success because of its surging price and high gas fees. It's making it untenable for some developers to build on Ethereum and to transact on Ethereum because the fees are so high. Do you think that their upcoming upgrades will help in making it more scalable, more economical in that sense? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think when you have challenges like Ethereum has had, and it comes about because it is being utilized and the decentralized nature of transactions like this, you have limited space. So it is a challenge, and it's been something that's been on the radar for a number of years, but I do have confidence that they're going to be able to get it sorted out and make it so that there is more transactions per second and more real use cases, because a lot of it is just kind of still play right now until these things can get sorted out. I think they'll get it figured out, and along the way they're going to be challenged by other projects that maybe have better have some better technology that's advanced over the years, because the older you are, the more difficult it is for you to be advancing with new technologies and bring it in. And that's the problem that Bitcoin had. The reason Ethereum is its own system is because you couldn't do what we wanted to do with Ethereum on Bitcoin. So new technology had to be created. But then again, since when Ethereum's come out back in 2015, there's 6 years of difference there. So it's harder to put in new technologies in older systems. And that's kind of the issues that Ethereum has had, and others will have that are older. So as newer ones come out, they're not going to have the mind share, and they're not going to have the first mover advantage, but they're going to be able to put in new technologies and make it easier there. So it's always a kind of a double-sided sword there. And Ethereum, I think, is up for the challenge. I think that they are moving things forward, and it has been slower than other people want. The gas fees are extremely high. I just don't know if that seems to be slowing anything down, though, really. And I think with the prices and where things have been the last few days, it doesn't seem to be stopping, and it doesn't seem to be impacting it too much.
Anthony, super fascinating. Thank you so much for weighing in on the Ethereum ecosystem and the crypto markets.
Thanks so much, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week.
You too. All right, that was Anthony Iorio, co-founder of Ethereum and CEO of Jax and Decentral. Coming up, checking in on Asia and the crypto markets analysis with crypto data firm Chainalysis.
Greatest paradigm shift in finance in modern history. Join thousands of newsmakers and influencers talking the future of money at Consensus by CoinDesk. A live virtual experience of leaders, changemakers, virtual reality meetups, keynotes from Ray Dalio, Gary Vaynerchuk, and much more. Get an up-close look at the boom in crypto, the surge of institutional investment in Bitcoin, NFT mania, the breakneck innovation in decentralized finance, and the coming disruption from central bank digital currencies. Join us May 24th to May 27th for Consensus by CoinDesk.
Time now for the daily forecast, an update on what's happening in the Asia crypto markets. Here's Angie Lau of Forecast News.
Welcome to the Daily Forecast, May 6th, 2021. I'm Angie Lau. Let's get you up to speed from Asia to the world. Crypto confusion in India. Seems like there's a de facto ban on banking for cryptocurrency exchanges in the country. Many exchanges are reporting that they're struggling with payment gateways and banks. The reason? An old Reserve Bank of India banking ban on digital currencies that was actually struck down by the Supreme Court over a year ago. Nishal Shetty, the CEO of India-based exchange WazirX, took to Twitter in frustration, saying, quote, "It's not fair that the crypto industry has a clear go-ahead from the Supreme Court of India, and yet banks denied banking to the industry." That Supreme Court go-ahead, though, has been less clear as of late, as lawmakers in India are considering an outright ban on cryptocurrency altogether. A draft of that bill circulated by India's Ministry of Corporate Affairs seeks to criminalize possession, trading, and transfer of crypto assets. And it looks like banks might be taking a proactive stance here in case the political hammer comes down. But there's no crypto confusion over Chia coin. We are in day 4 into Chia trading, where anyone can earn Chia rewards by simply sharing unused disk space on their hard drives. And that hype is real, according to Gate.io. Maria Tadibwe tells Forecast that things have been, quote, crazy, especially in China, where Chia miners have caused a hard drive shortage for mining XCH.
Everyone has been bitten by the Chia bug, and our Gate users are no exception. We listed XCH on April 30th, and we've already seen $10 million being deposited to our exchange in a trading volume of about $3 to $10 million.
All right, taking a look at the OG now, Bitcoin, quick rebound from yesterday's dip, up over 3%. In the top 10 of cryptocurrencies, we're watching Dogecoin playing a little dead here, down a little over 8%, but still ahead of XRP, which is up nearly 14%. Bitcoin Cash notable here, jumping almost 25% with fresh optimism heading into its network upgrade next week. Meanwhile, South Korea in focus again today with cryptocurrency cryptocurrency top of mind for the country's second most powerful political office. Today, Prime Minister nominee Kim Buk-yom addressed the National Assembly ahead of his appointment vote and answered questions about cryptocurrencies and his view on them. In his nomination hearing, Kim said that the nation's 4 million crypto investors must be protected via transparency in transactions, likely code for more regulations.
확실히 알 수 없으니까 당신들이 알아서 하라고 하기에는 그 정부가 너무 무책임해서 그래서 금년 지난번에 특정 금융정보법을 국회에서 만들어 주셨습니다. 그래서 금년 9월 25일인가요? 그때쯤 되면부터는 이 거래 자체는 정확하게 투명하게 지켜보겠다.
And finally, this Conflux continues to step back from its Open DeFi project, a consortium of DeFi protocols to bridge the East and West. And now Open DeFi is launching a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization. Open DeFi says the goal of Open DAO is to develop a multi-chain DeFi ecosystem that will actually open up liquid markets in new digital asset classes, including NFTs and data tokens, which means more access to more people, to more decentralized products. This is a trend worth watching here as more DAOs emerge in NFTs and DeFi with the rise of digital assets. And we're seeing more users embrace the value of decentralized organizations and smart contracts in this space. More DAO to come. And that's the Daily Forecast. I'm Angie Lau. Until next time.
The Crypto Markets Update is presented by Grayscale, the world's largest digital currency asset manager.
What's up with some Bitcoin? The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XVX index is currently trading at $57,430. Bitcoin is up about 2.5% over the past 24 hours, and the CoinDesk Ether price ETX index is trading at $34.75 right now. ETH is up about 2.7% over the past 24 hours. The most reliable reference prices for institutions since 2014 are now published under the CoinDesk brand, trusted globally as the leader in crypto news, events, and data. And joining us now to discuss the crypto markets is Philip Gradwell, chief economist at Chainalysis in London. Welcome, Philip, to the show.
Hi, pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you. All right, so give us your markets outlook. What investment out there is catching your eye right now?
As you covered just at the start of the day, it is alt season. Though, to be honest, I actually spend most of my time focusing on Bitcoin, ETH, the assets that we know will be around for a while and really have a use case. And that's really what I've been analyzing in the data recently, really seeing how Ethereum actually just is being used more and more, and that is what, for me, is underpinning its value.
As well as Bitcoin, what do you see for Bitcoin doing right now? It's kind of in a range.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is Bitcoin has kind of found a floor. I've been doing some analysis. I think last time I was here, we talked about the cost that people were buying Bitcoin at, that providing a floor to the price that actually has been borne out pretty well. That floor is now at about $57,000, so just below where we are today. And I think Bitcoin, though, it's seeing that demand, but that demand's perhaps easing off as as that retail attention really is refocusing elsewhere. So Bitcoin stays, I think, as the buy and hold asset. It's still scarce. People still don't know how the broader economy is going to go. But now the interest, if you like, is spilling out into the other cryptocurrencies.
Welcome back. We often talk about the connection with ETH and DeFi. In your latest piece, you go into it. So just exactly how important is DeFi in the run-up in ETH?
I really do think it's kind of been central to that story. And looking at the data on chain, we can see how Ethereum is moving between different types of smart contracts or, say, exchanges or other types of addresses. And in the last 12 months, 40% of all of the ETH that has moved on the blockchain has been flowing to, from, or between a DeFi contract. And that's up from 7% in the 12 months prior to that. So it's kind of just a huge structural change in how Ethereum is actually being used. And in that time, we've seen the rapid price appreciation of Ethereum.
And it's also because of the supply. You said there's more ETH available than Bitcoin in terms of supply. What does that mean exactly?
Yeah.
How Is it more of a populist cryptocurrency than even Bitcoin?
Yeah, so what we're looking at here is this measure that I call the free float. It's similar to, say, the free float for stocks and shares. So it's how much of the asset is actually available to be bought and sold. There isn't an exact equivalent for cryptocurrencies. So instead, I look at the amount of the asset that is held on-chain in wallets that have only held the asset for less than a year and that tend to, circulate it rather than hodl it. And so what we see in ETH is there's actually a lot more ETH available. Around 30% of the supply is liquid, is available to be bought on the market. For Bitcoin, that's actually been falling since mid-March of last year, now around 13%. And what this shows is that Bitcoin is just getting scarcer and scarcer. It's harder and harder to buy it. For Ethereum, on the other hand, it's actually relatively easy to acquire it. There's a lot of liquid ETH about. Normally, that would actually push the price down. But what's interesting is that demand, the other side of the price equation, if you like, always demand versus supply, is so much stronger for ETH because it's being used in DeFi, and that's what is pushing the Ethereum price up. So Ethereum has this extra demand, whereas Bitcoin has this scarce supply. So they really have opposing drivers pushing their prices up.
Welcome back. I'm going to just change the topic for a moment here because I know you have another area of expertise. So recently, we saw these comments by Charlie Munger, for example. I don't know if you're familiar, but he basically was slamming Bitcoin and saying it was a tool of kidnappers and extortionists. But more generally, we're seeing regulators in the US and elsewhere talking about Bitcoin as a tool for money laundering and for financial crimes. And given that this is very much what Chainalysis does, I'm curious what your take is on this impression of Bitcoin, because the Bitcoin people will fight back and they will say, no, this is completely off the mark. The traditional financial system is actually much worse for money laundering, and Bitcoin's easier to track. But I'm just curious if from your vantage point at Chainalysis, given that this is what you do, how accurate do you think this assessment is by regulators and others that Bitcoin is a tool of money laundering?
So I think it's actually important to say that a lot of the regulators now have a much more nuanced understanding. We occasionally get comments, by Janet Yellen, for example, that say, oh, there's more crime on cryptocurrencies than there actually is. But if you talk to the regulators who are working with cryptocurrencies day to day, they really now understand that cryptocurrencies are traceable when you're trying to combat crime, and that the level of crime is actually relatively low. So for crime that's native to the blockchain, we estimate it's around 1% of all the value that's being transacted. I think when it comes to people like Charlie Munger, their Bitcoin just needs to shake off, its reputation from 2013, 2014. I also think it might just be these people kind of grasping at some narrative or story, which means perhaps it's almost an excuse why they're not getting involved in this asset. It's an easy throwback. It's not accurate anymore.
So
and how does financial crimes and money laundering compare between sort of the cryptocurrency world and the traditional financial system, like banks?
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to do that comparison, from crypto into fiat. And actually, the reason is because the data in fiat is much, much worse than it is in crypto. One of the most beauties of a blockchain is that the complete record of all the transactions is there. So you can actually add it all up and say, well, actually, this much is associated with illicit activity and this much is not. So that chart we showed earlier with Ethereum, I was actually able to say, look, this is the amount of ETH that's flowing, from DeFi into exchanges. And if you add it all up, it's 100% of the transaction value that's moving. In the fiat world, you just cannot see where all the flows of funds are. So it's actually a hard problem, and actually it's hard because the fiat system isn't doing as well here.
Mm-hmm. Philip, thank you so much for breaking it down for us, all the data. Appreciate you coming onto the show.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
All right, that was Chainalysis Chief Economist Philip Gradwell coming up, checking in on crypto in Africa with crypto investment platform Revix, and CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor Nick Day.
The CoinDesk Spotlight is brought to you by Nexo, the place to earn on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and more.
South African crypto investment platform Revix raising over $4 million to launch a new app, rewards program, and expand their operations into Europe. Joining us now is Revix CEO and founder Sean Sanders in Cape Town, South Africa. Welcome, Sean. Perhaps you could
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Great to have you. Perhaps you could give our audience a quick explainer on what Revix is.
Sure. So Revix is an investment platform, so very similar to all the crypto exchanges we know out there. The difference is we have crypto bundles. So if you're looking at buying, let's say, the top 10 cryptocurrencies, instead of actually going out and buying each one individually, you can come to Revix and you can buy a bundle where you still hold the underlying cryptocurrencies, but you hold them through a sort of structure that gives you exposure to all of them through a single investment. So that's made us quite unique. And with this new capital that we've raised, we are going to be, as you mentioned, launching into Europe, and we're going to be blurring the lines between the traditional investing world and the crypto world. So we'll be launching a variety of thematic-based ETFs in conjunction with our crypto-based products. And our ultimate goal really is to say, well, listen, if you're wanting to invest in, let's say, AI or biotech or 5G technology or one of these fast-growing areas or sectors, you should be able to do that in a really easy way. And I think that's really the main offering that Revix has, is we have a really easy platform. I think everyone on the show, you're talking about just the term ETH or scaling solutions. For everyone that's sort of not in the crypto space, that's confusing. So we're looking at making it just a lot more accessible for newbies in the space.
Mm-hmm. Also, we heard that the Revix team recently moved their headquarters out of South Africa. Perhaps you could tell us what happened and what the situation is with crypto in South Africa.
Yeah, so it's actually a really touchy subject, if you want to call it that. Certainly with me. I spoke to Bloomberg not too long ago, and I was begging our regulators to step up. As you can hear, I'm a South African. South African regulators have been promising regulation for the last 3 years. It is still an unregulated industry in South Africa. That makes life very difficult for us with banks. It makes life really difficult with the likes of Google, Facebook, etc. And obviously, customers don't trust you as much. So working in an unregulated environment, it's challenging. And ultimately, the regulators do need to come out and say, listen, this is what you as crypto firms need to do. And it's going to provide a lot more certainty in the space.
And what are the people demanding? Are people still trying to use crypto, or what's the situation on the ground?
I think crypto adoption in South Africa is arguably higher in percentage terms than many other regions, right? So you are living in a country where you have rands as your currency. I mean, not to be funny, but it's sort of like a cryptocurrency itself. It moves around an incredible amount. Really not to be funny, but you can see 5 to 7% moves on a weekly basis. So South Africans, in a sense, a lot of emerging market countries are very much the same, but you're sort of used to volatility when it comes to your own home currency. So when it comes to crypto, yeah, sure, it's something that's no different. And I think the other thing is a lot of people in South Africa, there's exchange controls, which means that they restrict the amount of money that you can really move out of the country. So a lot of people have turned to cryptocurrency as a means to sort of circumvent exchange controls. Now, that's a political subject. Some people think that exchange controls aren't correct. Other people think that they're correct. But at the end of the day, they're the law. And regulators, again, they need to step up to be able to say to us as platforms, hey, listen, this is how you should be managing that, because crypto and exchange controls, they don't really work together very well.
That's a really interesting perspective, because I think a lot of people in the crypto world see regulation as like a negative thing. And you're actually saying that the lack of regulation can actually create greater problems for crypto companies. So I think that's a really interesting point. Where does South Africa fit into sort of the rest of Africa in terms of crypto regulation and just that kind of community? Because my impression is that in other countries in Africa, crypto is actually booming.
Yeah, crypto is booming, and don't get me wrong, crypto in South Africa is booming as well. Local stock markets haven't been performing very well, so your sort of alternative investments, alternatives not actually being like alternative asset classes, but your stock markets, your bonds, etc., they haven't been performing very well. So people have been moving to crypto as investable categories, or as an investable category. I think if you're looking at, other countries across the African continent, Nigeria came out quite recently where they seem to quasi-ban cryptocurrencies, sort of taking the same approach as what happened in India, where they just make banking near impossible for cryptocurrency firms. In South Africa, I can tell you with first-hand experience, there's 2 banks in the entire country that can assist you with any cryptocurrency-related transactions. That's incredibly difficult. And the other thing is, volumes are surging. Our platform has grown well over 20x since this time last year. And, that creates jobs. And if you're in an emerging market, jobs are absolutely everything. We are turning to regulators to say, hey, listen, give us the opportunity to create 20 times more jobs than what we've created today. So yes, while we're moving to Frankfurt, it's actually out of desperation more than anything, because we need to move to Frankfurt to be able to say, hey, listen, there's BaFin, there's a regulator in Germany that's able to facilitate and to cater to what we need. And that's what we're going after.
Sean, you made me chuckle, though, because I remember the days of the old South African financial rand and the regular rand. The 2 different exchange rates when that was going around. And maybe perhaps that has some effect on how South Africa views FX and crypto. But in terms of ETFs, how does South Africa, how somebody where you are, how do you guys view the U.S. compared to other countries and in terms of how they regulate the ETFs there and in the United States and how other countries do it? Do you feel relatively that the U.S. is actually behind, for instance, South Africa or for instance, Europe?
I don't feel that the US is really behind. I think the US is taking a very prudent approach when it comes to, for whatever reason, introducing a Bitcoin ETF or other cryptocurrency ETFs. South Africa, unfortunately, is further behind. There's a lot of talk and very little action. I think it's quite funny when I do speak to, whether it be, I've got loads of US investors, US friends. I've obviously spent a fair amount of time in the US myself. And I've got to say, and I say this all the time, you're absolutely spoiled when it comes to the investment products that you have and the investment platforms that you have, because you arrive in an emerging market like South Africa, but loads of other emerging markets out there as well. And all of a sudden, free trading apps, they don't exist. Adding to that, the financial products that you probably take for granted, like getting exposure to, let's say, a medical cannabis ETF or an AI ETF or a biotech ETF, you can't do that very easily. It's actually incredibly difficult to go ahead and do that. And that's really the big opportunity for us at Revix, is to be able to sort of merge those 2 worlds and make the accessibility of these fast-growing areas just, that much easier.
Yeah, really interesting to hear your perspective from South Africa, Sean. Appreciate you coming onto the show, and congratulations on your raise and your expansion plans into Europe.
Thank you, and hope you have a great rest of the day.
Yeah. All right, that was Revix CEO and founder Sean Sanders. Time to check in with CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor Nick Day, who's also the editor of CoinDesk's The State of Crypto newsletter. Hey there, Nick. So we're hearing from the U.S. Federal Reserve. They're proposing guidelines for novel banks that want to access Fed payments. Tell us about what they mean by these novel banks.
Yeah, so basically the Fed has published a proposal that they're asking for comments on, and it would allow chartered entities, such as, for example, Wyoming Special Purpose Depository Institutions, to tap Fed bank access. They could have direct access to the base layer of the U.S. payment system. So this could impact companies like Kraken and Avanti, which have set up in Wyoming as special purpose depository institutions. I'm not sure yet whether it applies to OCC chartered institutions like Anchorage and Protogo. But basically, it's saying, it's possible crypto companies could, if this proposal is adopted, have access to Fed payments, basically direct access to the U.S. payment system.
Nick, I don't know if you've been following the news on Kraken and taxes. It looks like that there's I think $20,000 of transactions now are going to be accessible to the IRS. Where does this fit into the larger pattern of cryptocurrency exchanges and tax collection?
Yeah, so last night, the U.S. government announced that it had secured a John Doe summons against Kraken. Basically, it's the exact same thing that happened with Circle last month. The IRS wants to know who has transacted more than $20,000 in crypto in any year between 2016 and 2020. Basically, they're trying to figure out who hasn't paid their taxes. This is, the IRS is trying to make sure that people who trade in crypto, who have held crypto and then sold, or just conducted, a huge number of transactions, are paying their taxes. And this is, it feels like they kind of are ramping up. Again, Circle, they secured a similar order against Circle last month. So this feels like just a next step there.
And Nick, it seems like Congress keeps hauling in people to talk about GameStop. Today they got Gensler. The House Financial Services Committee is going to grill him, I guess, about GameStop and what's going on. What are they trying to get out of him and others? What's the goal here?
Yeah, so in past hearings, they've been asking, how are regulators going to react to this to ensure that people don't lose money next time some stock goes up ridiculous amounts. Basically, it's, the question of consumer protection. Because while, a number of folks did make a ton of money off of GameStop, I believe, they had some research suggesting that there are also a number of people who bought in near the top and then lost their funds as the price of the, GameStop stock or even some of the other ones like AMC dropped. So, I think they're going to be asking Gensler about that. And his opening comments that he released yesterday do address that. They talk about consumer protection concerns, about how gamification plays into that, how, the current settlement cycle plays into that. So I do expect that to come up.
Yeah, will be interesting to hear those developments. Thank you, Nick, for your update.
Thank you.
All right, that was CoinDesk Managing Editor of Global Policy and Regulation, Nick Day. That's it for First Mover. Coming up tomorrow is special guest Hunter Murgard of Bitstamp. Thank you, Emily Parker and Lawrence Lewitinn. I'm your host, Christine Lee. I'll be back live at 3 p.m. with All About Bitcoin. Coming up at the noon is The Hash. You're watching CoinDesk TV.